So welcome everyone back to Democracy 3.0. Our organization innovates uh, collaborative democratic consensus building processes with the goal of eventually growing our numbers large enough that consensus of our group has real power in the real world. So for today, we have an agenda item, and I'd also like to call for agenda items. I'd like to do a quick check, see if anybody has anything that they would like to add to the agenda for today.
But can we see the agenda?
Oh, you can, so generally, if you'd like to add to the agenda, you can post it in the Discord server. So like in the future, anyone can add. Open agenda, anyone can suggest items for the meeting. So if there are no other suggestions, we have an agenda item this week to find a topic of mild disagreement to use to try out the process of disagreement resolution. So, we chatted about this a little bit in the server yesterday, and I've thought about it a bit, and I think a strategy discussion might be interesting and relevant. What do you guys think?
I'm up to talk about anything controversial, anything enlightening, anything from policy issues such as gun control or reproductive rights, or more esoteric things, or some strategy ideas like what's the vote, which I was a big proponent for, and I still think people saying that was a stupid idea. It's like I'm questioning their ideology, seeing is that, and what was the alternative? To do nothing? I don't see, because that's what they did, and they got utterly whacked. So you can't say something works if you don't try it. So that's why that's where I come from. Try it, and if it doesn't work, fine, whatever. But then you're just saying, it's like, just saying, oh, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're not winning anything. Like, you don't understand how things are doing anything. You're not getting anything done. So like, why am I listening? Here's a strategy. Let's do it.
Okay. Hey, Sass. TC, how are you doing today?
Oh, I was sending Sass the link. How am I doing today? Well, I'm a little confused right now. I thought we were going to do the topics and discussion on my Wednesday night meetings. And I thought that this week was going to be, because in the last night, we said this week we would talk about the treasury dollars and the treasury. Anyway, so now if you guys are doing it, I want to know, is it open? Is it going to be recorded?
It's recording now.
Yeah. It is being recorded. It is open. Do you have any objections to it being recorded?
What? I'm talking about when you guys have your meeting about UBI.
I'm sure that's going to be recorded.
Right. Eddie hasn't confirmed that he's we haven't confirmed any of this for sure with Eddie and like scheduled it or anything, but so that's the variable.
Okay. Well, I'm good to go. And if you do it, let me know and I'll change the subject for next week.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, TC. We'll figure it out here shortly, I hope.
Yeah. TC, the subject, where would you change the subject?
No, I
Well,
wasn't going to change the subject.
I thought that the subject for this Wednesday's Zoom meeting
Yeah,
was going to be the digital treasury and the digital dollars, and Nissan has copies of that. And if we were going to do it, I was going to send those copies to everybody that I invite, and they could view those or not. And then Brian could give a brief overview and then we could discuss it.
yeah,
That was my intention.
yeah. We can do that. I'm, it wasn't on the agenda for this week. Unless there's agenda list somewhere that I'm not seeing. But yeah. So yeah.
Well, I just decided that today.
So
And I haven't sent the email out yet. So I haven't, so I can still change it.
Okay.
are we all talking about the same thing? So TC is talking about his agenda for next Wednesday's deliberative democracy meeting
Mhm.
and whether we do talk about treasury dollar bills. And we're trying to find out if Eddie wants to schedule a meeting to talk about UBI treasury stuff, in which case it'll be a better fit. And TC's meeting is more of a informational welcome,
Right.
like get people into the shallow end of the pool before pushing them into the deep economics of how treasury dollar bills and central bank currencies work.
Yeah.
We can do that. All good. Okay, so I think we're on the same page for today to try out the disagreement resolution process.
Brian, any thoughts? Anything you think we might have about the disagreement on? So we got stuff we disagree on.
Yeah,
There's 50 policies in the legislative package. If you guys want to pick one of them to disagree on, I'll be happy to defend whatever's in there. But other than that, I don't know. Whatever you guys want to do is fine.
okay, cool.
SAS, any ideas of what particularly you have a disagreement on? Which will probably be, probably wants to talk about RCB because he likes to talk about RCB death.
Yeah, I mean, the claim that ranked choice instant runoff voting is a positive move in the United States right now, like very specifically that. Like I don't agree with that claim.
Yeah.
Is it any other disagreement things you have?
Yeah. Sas, I did a little research on that, and it's looking dead to me. So, we may have that may be resolved already.
Yeah, we may have beaten that horse to death. I don't want to keep kicking it.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like other things. I mean, I don't know, like I'm into UBI, I'm into universal healthcare, like I'm into like transforming our economy so it like incentivizes improving the well-being of people on the planet. Like
any controversial view? Any outlandish view you have?
Okay, so there are a couple things that I do take very hard stances on. Most things I'm very very compromised and hybrid. There are a few things that I'm like very, very hard stance on. So like capital punishment, 100% against that, always and forever. I don't think there's ever justification for capital punishment. Infant genital mutilation, sometimes people call it circumcision. 100% against that. It is almost never medically necessary. and it should not only be illegal, but like I think there should be very harsh punishments for anybody who engages in it, whether they're a medical professional or a parent. And then I believe very strongly that the United States and Russia need to work much more strongly toward nuclear disarmament. Among other countries, like those two specifically, like we really need to be more aggressive about denuclearization, because I think that I think that it is slowed down to a point where it is causing more problems, and it is creating more international security concerns rather than preventing them, which is the whole point of slowing down in the first place. So those are probably some really hard stances that I take. So I don't know if
I
anybody.
don't see any of them as controversial.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
think that I think
Um,
strategy would be kind of,
I could tell you the opposite view, because I talk a lot. So I mean, I could do the opposite stances of those things, but
so,
I'm pretty much with SAS on that. So
yeah. So one of the things that I wanted for tonight is to have sort of some degree of relevance, and my for platform discussions, my thoughts on it are that they're like I think strategy is actually more relevant than platform right now a little bit, because the platform there's sort of gonna, I think that's sort of a continual process. Like if we get like a perfect platform, and we have Brian Winter's platform, the American Union platform, which I think there's relatively a high level of consensus on. I think it's more or less good enough for now. But I think, to me, like I think a relevant discussion would be strategy, like what shall we actually do as an organization.
I agree.
okay, all right. So what difference in strategy do you think it?
Yeah, so I want to go ahead and propose a process for this, the disagreement resolution process. So I'm going to share screen now. It was in the Discord server, so some of you may have seen this. This is my proposed process. So the first step, is from abstract value to specific policy plan, identify the highest level at which agreement exists. So the theory here is that the basic universal human values are fairly universal. At the bottom level, everybody more or less wants the same thing, and disagreements tend to come in when you move from the basic values at one end, and very specific, like what we're going to do, what the specific policy is going to be, things like that, at the top. And the thing is, I think that those disagreements arise from differing ideas about what would happen as a result of that, of those policies, or those decisions. So step one is identify the highest level at which we're in agreement. Step two is identify on both sides the assumptions and premises behind the position. So again, if we view this as sort of a scientific process of reality testing, I'd argue that I think a disagreement occurs because of different different sets of ideas, but at the bottom of that, at the core of it, there are going to be assumptions and premises. And I think if we can identify those and examine them, then maybe we can bring people closer to a consensus. So number 3, I think, is really important. I think that it is a very big trap that in most cases, when you sort of start debating ideas, a lot of times people sort of fall into the position of trying to win the argument. And it becomes something where neither side is going to agree to like be the losing party. And so it never gets anywhere. So I think that in order to have a effective and constructive conversation that leads anywhere, I think that it's important that both sides can identify how those assumptions and premises might not hold, how the ideas about reality, how each person's ideas may not be may not prove to be true. How might I be wrong about this thing? The 4th step is examine the data together. And the 5th step is integrate the findings into a consensus position. And I think that, again, if we do this right, some of these things may not be like this side won or that side won. It may be, you started with 2 positions, you examined the assumptions and the data, and in the end, some things may be, you may be able to integrate, sort of parts of both position into a consensus, into a larger consensus. I think the prerequisites for this to work is that the sides or positions have to have a willingness to be wrong and to integrate new data. So like, for example, I think if this, as a example, if someone had a religious belief about God or something, and they were upfront not willing to change that, then I don't think that would be a part of this process. That would not be something to bring into this process. Willingness to commit effort to maintaining ties to the organization and relationship. So I think the larger goal of the organization, again, is to build consensus and to also grow in numbers. So I think disagreement resolution is fairly uncommon. I think that the generally the normal and polite thing to do, with disagreements a lot of times, is to just sort of let it be and avoid the disagreement. And I think that this process will be challenging, and I think we have to be, prerequisites that we have to be willing to commit effort to maintaining ties to the organization and relationship. Otherwise, as things get more heated, at some point, probably, I think, you probably end up with heated disagreements and people leaving, and then it will be hard for the group to grow. So I guess I should check, are there any, I guess, paramount objections to giving this a try today at this meeting? Or any?
So
I'm all for it.
So the goal is to identify specific policies or plans, as opposed to, I mean, shouldn't the goal be to make sure that, to agree on a goal? Like, what is the problem that these policies or plans are trying to solve? What is the metric by which you judge the standards of success?
Yeah. So what number 1 means, what number 1 means, to clarify that a little bit, my idea about that is that I think that essentially all disagreements, all ideas can be that you can you can place them on a spectrum. And I think that the universal value, the core values, most things that you do, you do it in order to do something else. So you go to a job so that you can make money, so that you can buy food, so that you can survive. And the top three things that I just listed, those are all, sort of specific things that you do in order for something else. And the very bottom, in order for, is like to survive. And some people may have something beneath that. Maybe there's a reason to survive, but I guess, like, basically at some point there's a value that you don't survive, or maybe you don't exist in the world for the purpose of something else necessarily. Or maybe you do. I mean, maybe your core value is like freedom, or increasing the happiness of the world. So you're not going to ask, why should we want everybody to be happy, or why should we want everybody to be better off? Like, what is the reason to do that? It's the basic value. I think that people agree on that. I don't think that there will be people who say, no, I want the world to be worse off. I want everybody to be more unhappy, things like that. So you have agreement at the bottom, but people disagree on policies. And at the very top is specific things like what to do this week for an organization or something. Sorry, that was a little bit long, but the larger goal here is to create a disagreement resolution process. So from the bottom. I don't know. Does that answer your question, Brian?
Sure.
So now all that's left is just to find something to disagree about.
Yeah. So let's see.
How about you, Eddie? Do you have any controversial or outlandish or other type of belief or views or strategy or something?
So, Babi, you're the mom of it. So actually, I thought that it would be a good time to open up a strategy document and sort of outline. So if I figured that strategy. So I figured that I have some ideas. Nissan, you might have some ideas. Brian might have some ideas. I don't know if DC or SAS have ideas about strategy. They may well, and certainly welcome to share. And if we are, if we can fulfill the first two requirements, which is willingness to be wrong and integrating your data, and willingness to try to stay together, we could talk about that. So I did a little thinking, preparation this morning. I think that we're in agreement that the current government is not functioning optimally. So if anybody is not in agreement on that, and improvement is desirable, if anybody's not in agreement on that, you can speak now. And if not, then position one is essentially my position.
Well, point of agreement one, I would go a little further and say not function optimally. I'll say not function, period. Because I mean, we have, like, the data's in. We function as an oligarchy.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, like the values of the people and the policies are pretty much zero. It's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I wouldn't say not functioning optimally, not functioning, period.
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us are, I think we're all pretty, actually like pretty similar here. And then, you know, the verbiage like might be a little higher or lower. So that's why, since we're looking at like points of agreement, like where we all definitely agree, like optimally is sort of the light, the weak position that I think everybody,
That's very weak.
yeah. If nobody objects, we can say optimally is not functioning well. Right.
That's
But I
still
mean,
light to me.
yeah, I'm not like I'm not terribly interested in like getting this super precise, like this statement. Like I'm more interested a little bit in going, look, we all agree it's not working. What do we do about it?
Oh,
Yeah,
one thing is we have to get rid of the undue influence in our system.
yeah.
That's should be number one.
So like Nissan, I'm curious about if you have any thoughts about strategies for improving upon, you know, government that's not working.
Oh yeah, I have tons of strategies that I've gone and have many talked about, and it calls for very strategic taking over certain positions and implementing certain policies in a specific order in order to capture the PowerPoints of the structure in order to fully regain control of the system. And once that can be done, then we could rebuild. Then we could then start implementing policies to fix the things that were non-functioning before beginning, which is our accountability structure, which pretty much is non-existent.
Yeah.
And adding that into it. Alternatively, the more stronger strategy is due to the fact that we are in the midst of a collapse at this particular point, you know, to wait, to actually wait for the most opportune time when the power gap opens up in order to have a small contingent group to rush in and take over, and then we put in a new structure entirely. So there's two different plans of attack. That one is a more longer running one, which is the long game, and then you have the short game, which is what Joseph Stalin pretty much did, which was effective in that case, but just didn't have any policy stuff to back it up at the end, which co-opted the system. So
sorry, that who did?
Joseph Stalin.
Okay.
So when he saw the fall of the Soviet was it fall of the Soviet Union? Oh, it was a fall of the what they're called. I forgot what the empire thing is called. Saw? Yeah, the fall of the fall of the Saw, and he his clique, and he it says why wait with this going now, because they have no, they're all discombobulated, and he did it, and he took over that way. So like, okay, so those are two effective methods of actually getting through the system. One is the long game, which is rebuilding the system from the bottom up by actively targeting, taking over the key weak points, which, like I said, is very difficult because we have to identify all the key weak points, and that is having and deal with particular policies. So you have to do on the local level, having to hit, you know, the Sun Mayoral and the DAs, and then get that all lined up for the policies and pass these Sun policies with that are agreed upon, which is, the accountability structure, and then working all the way up to recapturing the Supreme Court, which would be the total end goal, because the Supreme Court is the only governmental branch that has the safety branch of being a lifetime position. So that has to be fixed, because that is a huge exploit.
Okay.
The fact that the fact is that the target, the Supreme Court already has been captured. You have to recapture it, and that's going to be using the same methods of regulatory capture that was used to capture it to begin with, because apparently they didn't, they opened the door, they had the door wide open, and they didn't bother to close it. So that would be the way to do that. Short game, which probably is preferable to more radical people, would be, again, to take advantage of a really weakness in the structure, because right now, once we're going to hit, like I mentioned before, we're very close to another major, economic recession. That's being likely probably going to be a depression at this point. Why wasn't a great depression if things get worse? With the high rise of interest rates going, high rise of inflation going through the roof now, and there seems to be no stopping inflation. Plus the fact that the dollar is in threat of losing its, position as the world reserve currency, being challenged by the Chinese yuan and Bitcoin. Although the yuan is probably in a better position than Bitcoin at this point, because Bitcoin has only been actually used by one country as a currency. So the yuan is much more recognized than Bitcoin at this point. So
Okay.
during that shift, the thing would be to wait for the power struggle as they all rush out the gate, and then take up a whole new council and forcefully rush in the White House and all that stuff, and then basically take over by making sure that the key people are taken in control of. That's basically it. So those are two basically systems that would probably do the job.
Okay. Brian, I wanted to check with you and see if you'd be interested in putting forth a position for strategy.
Yeah, so I guess to just kind of build on what Nissan said, with the long game versus short game, is that, there are cycles in history, and there's times like the Russian Revolution that Lenin and Stalin were able to radically transform the country in a very short amount of time. Like when it actually started happening, I forget which one of them, like wasn't even in the country. They weren't planning on making a move, and just all of a sudden all the cards started falling in place, and so we were there to take advantage of it.
I'd actually like to propose that as a point of agreement, if there are no objections to that.
That's pretty accurate. Cycles in history.
Yeah. So we're at a time where the short game is a possibility as things fall apart, whether it's through a big recession or depression or whatever. Like Nissan says, that opens the door for the strong man to come in and be like, hey, all of your economic problems are those people's fault, and we've got to gang up on them, and that'll make your lives better, and people will go along. That's the possibility that we should all be trying to avoid by solving these problems, so it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, I'd like to check if we have agreement on a point that we're at perhaps a risk of authoritarianism.
I think that's the other thing. Yeah. The threat is very high. we already have an active group called QAnon that is actually trying to
Yeah.
subvert
So
the
you,
country.
yeah, so Nissan,
They're not even shy about it.
yeah, you agree. Brian brought it up. I agree. TC, do you agree on this point?
The point of what?
Um,
That we
that
have a huge threat of authoritarianism.
we're at a critical time in history.
Oh,
and
yeah, I think we're there.
yeah. Yeah,
I mean, the oligarchs are in charge, so it's certainly nothing to do with the people.
yeah. Okay. Sass, do we have agreement on this? Sass may not be there, maybe AFK. Okay.
Hang on, he says.
Oh,
Okay. Use them to build the diverse because of a number of big enough numbers of power. Then towards larger groups of governments with more decentralized power. I do, yeah, I agree with that. Position 2, plan 1, long game, bottom up, recapturing the judicial branch. Wait, hang on. I missed.
so,
I'm sure you guys talked about it. I was kind of half paying attention. How do we recapture the judicial branch?
right, Sass, so,
Oh, that's a long and arduous process there.
yeah. Sass, so we're, we're building, points of agreement, and finding the first level at which there is disagreement. And I wanted to check if we are all in agreement, if you're in agreement, also that we're at a risk of growing authoritarianism, we're at a critical time in history, and there's a risk of growing authoritarianism. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 5 points of agreement at the top, I do agree with those. I think it is important that we put like the context of like in the United States. There are a lot of countries in this world, and they're all at different spots. But I think in the United States, those points are true. I really do. We really are in a critical time for sure. Yeah, and could go in a couple different directions, some of them not so great, including authoritarianism.
Awesome. Yeah. So so Brian, you were actually talking, and I just wanted to add that to our points of agreement. But I wanted to check that we could do that.
Yeah, I don't think I had anything else.
Okay.
We have a plan.
Yeah.
All right.
I have many plans.
So I don't know. I think we need to clarify position 2. Like Nissan, you said a lot of strategy. Brian, I actually want to propose position 3, which is essentially like the swing voter strategy that American Union uses.
That's pretty much just that's pretty much part of the also part of the long game.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a separate thing. It's just a strategy that would play into the long game as a line of attack, because that's essentially force the vote version 2.0. Is essentially what that is.
Force the vote. You mean swing, like sort of swing voter strategy?
Well, I mean, because originally force a vote was to prevent Nancy Pelosi. If you don't do what we say and get a floor vote or whatever we want, then you're not getting reelected. Which is the same thing, but on the president's level by the citizens, saying, hey, senators and president, if you don't do what we say now, you're not getting reelected.
Okay.
So it's essentially force a vote on a larger scale,
For
which is part of the long game.
the vote here is the vote in the Senate. Is that?
Yeah, it's a force to vote, yeah.
Force,
But you have to,
force the actions of politicians in exchange, in advance of.
but don't get that twisted. That's still part of the long game. Because you need a strong base of support on the bottom to actually make that demand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you need numbers for that. Proposal for a point of agreement. I think we probably all agree that we need numbers to get anything done. Any objections?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you.
We need numbers. We need large numbers of people.
Well, no, if you're going with short game, you don't need that large of a number.
Okay. Can we say for the long game, for the
long game, yeah, you definitely need a large number.
the long
That one
term?
more for the short number.
would-
It needs to be a large number and a sustained attack,
Yeah,
which is going to be difficult to sustain that.
yeah,
So not only do you have to, get everybody on board, and you have to keep everybody on board for a very long amount of time.
okay. So Nissan, what do you mean by, for the short game, we don't need numbers? Tell us more about that.
Like I said, it's like the Lenin Stalin method. Their group wasn't that particularly large when they took over. They just captured the white place with the white people, and there you go. They said, well, we're in charge now, and that's when they started everything. And the only thing they had was a big rising movement there that said, okay, and then you'd be like, okay, you're the man in charge now. We're going to go with your strategy, because he said, I got the solution for you. Just like every strong man does. They said, I got the solution for you.
Okay.
And then they show up to people like, these are people causing your problems. Like, like I said, like, yeah, we got rid of these people. Now we're going to go and introduce the solutions. There you go. And it was and that's largely effective. It's been done in human history for, I don't know how many thousands of years. That's how the big man, comes in, takes over,
Yes.
that's kind of, that kind of just repeats itself. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that in
Yeah.
very much detail.
It sounds like a short game that would not be something that would be practical for Democracy 2.0 right now.
Well, no, I mean, it worked to get democracy into other places.
Oh,
That's how we got democracy in freaking America with the revolution.
I mean, like for our organization right now, like, is that?
For organization now, no, that won't work. I'm just saying, like, those are the two strategies that if you want to get something changed, those are the only two ways those are going to change.
Yeah.
Plan one, the long game, very hard, very difficult, and of course long. Short game,
Yeah.
very short, but requires the opportune time.
Yeah. So we're talking about our organization, like, us, the five of us. We're talking about today. We're talking about now. But now and the future.
Well, like I said, if you come out with a strategy, get everybody on board with that strategy, execute that strategy with just a few groups of people, maybe like a few thousand, and then get into implement your solution. Nobody's going to question you, and then there you go. But you need somebody that's very charismatic to get people on your side to like you, because it don't really matter what you actually do. It's about the people that look at you, because that's how our psychology is due to tribalism. That's just how it works. I don't know what else to tell you. That's what has been shown in history. That's how it works.
Yeah, yeah, I think I agree with you on that.
I think the Tea Party was an example of that,
Yeah,
where a small, really amount of people relative to the amount of people in the nation put enough people in Congress to really shake things up, and we ended up with Trump.
yeah, that's pretty much that. Yeah. It's that's why Justice Democrats was designed to be the Tea Party of the left, although their head got chopped off before they actually executed the plan, and they never executed. So, although we did manage to get a lot of feedback from the congresswomen and other staffers inside the actual Congress that were progressive enough to actually feed back information, and the information we got back wasn't good. It was the Congress was totally captured. There's no more honest actors in there at all. And they had a Pacific, they had a Pacific, a procedure, not procedure, like a mill kind of how to like break down people into like submitting into their way of thinking. So yeah, it's bad. So it's basically you literally sent people into a lion's den and gave them nothing but a stick.
So
I'm like, wow, I felt bad after
is there a strategy that doesn't require large numbers, or require?
that. That's the short game again. Well, relatively small number.
So what is the short game like? As a game plan. What is the?
I mean, I literally just explained it to you.
I didn't get it. Like
Come
for
up,
example, yeah.
you have to come up with taking over the narrative with an actual with a solution. Have it presented by a very charismatic figure that will build up support, then demonize the one side and shows that they're the problem, show that you're the solution with the charismatic figure. And then when the opportune time comes, you strike and take out the key positions of power in the places where they reside. And that's it. Once you capture those areas, then you put yourself in charge, and then there you go.
Yeah. So Nissan, is this a candidate for a strategy for our organization?
I'm just saying that's a plan of how you get change. If it could do it in this organization, well, unless you find a very charismatic figure in our team, I don't think we have that. I would think this is more something that the right has right now, and they already plan to do this.
Yeah.
The left don't have an answer to this.
Yeah.
Which I believe the left should have an answer to. Just like the Black Panthers realize that they don't have the opposition.
Okay.
So
like it sounds like both you and TC are talking about something that happened, and I'm not sure if if we're talking about it as something that happened or something that we
there's something that happens frequently. There's something that repeats itself.
Happens. Is this something that we would consider doing, the five of us?
I mean, I have things that work, so I'm like, I'm up for either plan 1 or plan 2, whichever works.
Let me rephrase that. The end goal is a consensus, but we have positions here that maybe that we are going to sort of compete for this consensus. Are you pushing this plan? Like, is that, are you pushing, would you like?
I'm telling you the two legitimate plans that would actually work. Although one, that the plan one is mostly the left's idea of how to do things, which does work, but like I said, it takes a long ass time. And normally
it
would
needs a lot
be
of money
considered to
too.
do when we're in a stable time in history. Right now, we're in an unstable time. So the short game would probably win out in this particular manner. Because the short game only works if there's an opportunity that arises, and that opportunity will arise very shortly. And the right and there are militia groups and stuff already prepared to do this.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you what's happening. That's and what's going to happen.
yeah, no,
Because
I agree. I agree. I mean, for me, that's.
I would say
that's the plan.
it'd be stupid for the left not to come up with a defense against the right short game, because they already have everything they need to accomplish it. So the left would be stupid to ignore that.
So, do you have a proposal for how to counter that? Because that's what it sounds to me like.
Well,
that,
one is to build up a militia,
yeah,
because right now they have all the guns, we don't. So if we get into that type of fight, we're going to lose real quickly.
yeah. Well, yeah, I agree that I would say that we don't want to get into that type of fight if at all possible.
Yeah, I mean, but right now, all other strategies to like slow down or prevent that has failed. And I don't know how much longer we have, until that becomes inevitable, which probably is not going to be that long. So best prep now. That's all I got to say about that. I mean, we already had a small test one.
I say we shorten the long game and play the short game. And we work on building up a large mass of independent voters that are willing to put enough people in Congress to actually do something to disrupt the system.
TC, I mean, basically the American Union Plan. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No. Third
I-
parties
I-
don't work.
I'm still saying, even if you do the American Union Plan, that's still the long game,
I was just
because
saying.
you're still playing on the system itself. You have to wait for the moments of power to take place, which is at the end of every election cycle, which every 2 years. So it would take 2, 4, 6, maybe about 2. It'll take like 3 or 4 cycles before you have enough power to actually get anything through. So that's still the long game, and you have to hold that base of support for that many cycles.
So I disagree. Because once you establish a group of swing voters as the deciders, then everybody has to acknowledge that they have the power to be the deciders. And so that puts them in a position of leverage. And the advantage of this model is that it enables, like, it avoids the authoritarian strong person and instead creates the opportunity for a people's Congress to come together around solutions and solve problems in a way that otherwise they don't have to look to an authoritarian. They can
Yeah,
come up
but
with-
the thing is, I'm not disagreeing with you that it won't cause leverage. I'm just saying, because it's still using the standard political procedures that we have installed already, that you're using the system, you're still using the system. So even though they have sway and they could push the buttons and the machinations, the machine takes a while for the output to actually come out, because the machine has to go through its paces.
right.
So-
Yeah, you can only use it once every 2 years.
Yeah, you can only use it once every 2 years, and plus, you need a certain amount of power to get it all the way through for the things to actually calculate. So again, it's still the long game, because even if you enact that attack, which I'm not denying would work, that would be a very effective attack if we could hold it. We would still have to hold it for a considerable amount of time before we actually get the output we're looking for, just because of the way the system operates in cycles.
But that's why it overlays over the existing system, that third parties don't work. You're not going to be able to elect a third party candidate. Especially not in sufficient numbers.
That's not the argument, though.
Okay, so maybe I'm misunderstanding what
The argument is that even if you do your strategy, which I admit will work, by the time we actually see the results of the action we took in, because we're using the actual structures in place, the structure itself is a slow process.
But that's why you turn the model around with writing the legislation.
No, even if you turn the model around to give us power and leverage, it's still a slow process, because it still has to go through the same parliamentary procedures. Because you have to go through the parliamentary procedures and onto the president's desk. There's a procedure there. It just doesn't go from, we want you to do this, and then it ends on the president's desk. That doesn't work that way.
Well, but it does, though. You can point to numerous occasions where Congress does work that way, when they decide to do something and they get it done immediately. There's no restriction on them doing it. It's just a matter of generating the political pressure and will for them to actually do it.
So
but you don't have the actual political pressure in the very beginning with just a few amount of swing voters and a few senators, because you're talking about getting like just a few senators. You need a bunch of senators.
Yeah. So we're actually at time, but you guys are welcome to continue this conversation unofficially after the meeting. But I do want to close the meeting out officially right now, on time. But before I do that, I wanted to check if anybody has anything going on this week that people could get involved with. Like Brian, this week, do you have any, text banking, any use for volunteers this week?
Yeah, so on Tuesday evening, we've got the next Campaign for Peace meeting, getting people together around the peace positions of the legislative package. And Wednesday is TC's meeting as well.
Tuesday is Call for Peace. Okay.
Yeah, the campaign.
Links to these meetings will be in the Discord channel, right?
It's on the UPA's calendar.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If there are no other, action opportunities this week, I'll call this the end to our meeting officially. Thanks everyone for coming and watching. See you guys next week.